Okay, so it is time for my midweek review for the third week of July 2020, and it's going to be an interesting midweek reading vlog check-in because there have been some changes. So what changes have there been? You're about to find out right now. Okay, first up, let's talk about this bad boy, Black Prism. The Black Prism, I should say, by Brent Weeks. So, if you watched my end of week wrap up for the end of last week, I was talking about how I was going to be reading this book, and it is an adult fantasy that's over 700 and something pages long, and I was going to take from Monday to Friday to read this book. Well, that changed. I started reading this book on Monday as planned, and I did not enjoy the first chapter, but I decided to keep going. I did not enjoy the second chapter, so I decided to keep going. I did not enjoy the third chapter, and by the end of the third chapter, I DNF'd this book. I am starting to view adult fantasy books in a different way, and at the moment, let's just say I'm not really motivated to pick up adult fantasy books anymore. One of my most favourite series of the year so far, if not my favourite, is an adult fantasy series. This one up here, Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. But ever since getting through the first era of Mistborn, I'm really struggling to fall in love with any sort of adult fantasy. There are adult books that I love, but just, I don't know. There's always a reason. Anyway, so I've DNF'd this book and I'm going to explain why. First of all, I do not find the magic system to be that interesting at all. Secondly, there is way too much swearing going on in this book. Now, generally speaking, I don't object too much as far as if there is swearing in a book, but I do find a major difference between swearing where necessary or swearing for the sake of having swearing, and this book, its swearing and vulgar language is more just for the sake of having it there. I don't feel like there's any real reason. Also, while I was reading chapter 3, there was a scene that was playing out referring to the magic system that I found personally just to be a little bit disgusting. I'm just gonna say one word and then leave it at that, and that word is urine. Yeah, I mean, after everything else that I'd gotten to in this book, that kind of ended it for me, and I was done. I don't know. Maybe this book gets better, and I don't know, maybe when we get to a point of me trying to have another go with books that I've DNF'd, I'll put this on the list and maybe I'll give it another go at some point. But for right now, it's just not the book for me. So I DNF'd it. Not only did I DNF it, but as I said, I DNF'd it on Monday. And that book was meant to last me from Monday to Friday, which then put me in a really difficult situation. I now had to find a book or books that were going to last me from Monday to Friday, because while I had other books on my TBR is very pedantically scheduled to ensure not only that I get through all the books I don't DNF that I plan on reading for that month, yeah, but also it's so pedantic in, yeah, it's a very pedantic schedule, and one day I'm going to talk about how I schedule my TBRs, but I now had 5 days, including that Monday where I DNF'd the Black Prism, to come up with a book or books that were going to get me through from Monday to Friday, and it took me a hot minute, at least an hour, to come up with a replacement, but eventually I did. I ended up deciding to, for Monday to Thursday, I chose to read this book, The Devil Wears Prada by Lauren Weisberger, or Weisberger. This book is the original source material for the very famous film that stars Meryl Streep and Anne Hathaway. I absolutely love this film. I have seen it many times, and I think the acting, especially between um, Meryl Streep, Anne Hathaway, and Emily Blunt, is just so good, and the premise and everything, I just love it. So I had this book somehow, don't ask me how, but I had it on me. I must have bought it ages ago because I didn't even remember buying it, and yeah, so I ended up choosing this book. I am this far in, and I will talk about it in just a moment, but I ended up picking this book to read from Monday to Thursday, but then I still had to read something for Friday, and so I ended up choosing this book, which is Rowan of Rin by Emily Rodda. This is a middle grade fantasy, and it is less than a quarter tome, so it's less than 250 pages, and these two books would now serve to replace my schedule for this book. But I will talk about both of these in just a moment. First of all, I want to talk to you guys about Mockingjay by Susan Collins. Now, as you guys know, I became very disappointed by the time I got to the end of the second book in this series, which I've forgotten what it is called. It's right behind me. Catching Fire. Yeah, so about a quarter of the way to halfway through the second book in this series, the Hunger Games series, Catching Fire book, there is a plot twist that occurs that ensured that something I really wanted to see was not going to happen. And then there's another major plot twist that occurs at the end of the second book that ensured that I probably would not enjoy this third book in the series. I started reading it in, I believe, week 1. It was either week 1 or week 2, and I just really wasn't enjoying myself because the premise of the first book and what made it so loved by so many people, and I gave the first book 5 stars, suddenly became moot. And yeah, I just didn't appreciate the direction Susan Collins was going in. But eventually I decided that I was going to pick this back up again and read little sections each day so that it wouldn't take over my day of reading alongside whatever else I was reading, but also read it in an objective way so that I would be reviewing it, or not necessarily reviewing it, but reading it in a way of, rather than how much am I personally enjoying it, I would instead be looking at it more as to how is this book for the intended audience that it is written for? So in a much more objective way rather than an emotional way. And I am very close to being done. In fact, I'm going to finish this book tomorrow, which is good. I stuck to my schedule. I was giving myself 8 days. Today's day 7. So I should be done with this tomorrow, which is really, really good. I have to say I very much appreciate the fact that I was limiting myself to the amount of pages that I was each day, which was at maximum 4 chapters, at minimum 3 chapters, so it really wasn't a lot at all. And by the time I was kind of sick of what I was reading with this book, I was done with what I needed to read that day anyway, so it really worked out well. As far as looking at it objectively, even though I haven't finished the book yet, from what I've read so far, I can say that this book is well written, and for the target audience, it is a really good book. Susan Collins writes with a very easy writing style to read, and she also writes in such a way that you feel like you are inside the body or the soul of her main characters, and I very much do appreciate that. Jumping in with my personal feelings, I'm really not enjoying this book at all personally, but I appreciate the book for what it is. So let's move on and talk about this book, The Devil Wears Prada by Lauren Weisberger. Now, I love this film, and very recently I have started reading books that ended up becoming films or books that end up becoming shows, and over the course of 2020 so far, I've had mixed reviews for the original source material when it comes to shows or films that I love. Some books I really think are amazing, other books I really don't like at all, and other books just cram in so much more information that makes it even better than what I had originally seen the film or the show. In this case, this falls into that latter category of there is so much more information in this book than was included in the film. Now, this is completely understandable. It was when the film came out, it was a standalone film. There was only one film that was ever made. More on that in just a moment. But there was only one film that was ever made, and there was a time restriction. So not everything could be included. But at least from what I've read so far, and I will finish this book today, the bones of the book is in the film. And I do really appreciate that. So the premise of this book, in case you're not aware, is that it follows our protagonist, whose name is Andrea Sachs, who prefers to be called Andy. She applies for a position to work for Miranda Priestley, who is the chief and editor of Runway magazine, the most popular fashion magazine, at least in the United States, but it's also popular around the world, and Miranda Priestley is very well known. The reason it is called The Devil Wears Prada is because Miranda Priestley is probably the most devilish boss that's ever existed, and wears Prada, well, because she has a fashion magazine. Miranda, as a boss, is impossible to work for. Anytime, as is quoted in this book, anytime you do something right, it doesn't even get acknowledged. And anytime you get something wrong, she's not only, disappointed, but she is vicious. And she has these, expectations that just sometimes can't be reached. Like, it's just ridiculous. To give you an example, at least in the film, in the film version, she asks Andrea to get her twins, she has twin daughters, to get her twins a copy of the unpublished manuscript for the final Harry Potter book, even though it has not been published and not been given to anyone else. And Andrea is just expected to get these books and give them to the twins. And in the film, she even says, oh, and by the way, if you don't have these books by the end of the day, don't even think about coming back. You don't have a job anymore. And that just gives you some idea of how much of a tyrant this boss is. So reading this book has been really interesting because it goes into more detail about Andrea's life in the film, while there are little things that are picked up upon, a little bit about one of her friends and a little bit about her boyfriend. This book goes into a lot more detail about her home life than the film ever did, but also there are different things that occur in this book than the film. Different things altogether as far as what happens at work for Andrea, but also there are things that happen in the film that are in the book, but they're just done in a different way. So yeah, I feel like this is a totally fresh experience for me, even though I've seen the film that many times and I love it so much. And provided I'm not let down for the last, I think I've got like 100 pages left to go. Provided I'm not let down for those last 100 pages, then yeah, I'm probably going to give this book 5 stars because I've really enjoyed it. Now, I found out recently, and this is what I was going to say earlier, that there is actually a second book. Oh my god. So I think it's called Revenge of the Devil, or Revenge of the Prada, or something like that. And I'm so excited that there's a second book in this series because there is not a second film. And apparently Meryl Streep has been interviewed and asked if she would want to do a second film if they adapted into a second film, and she said no. They also asked Anne Hathaway, and she said no as well. Both of them said that it was a great experience during the film, but it's best to just leave it there as a standalone film, which is fine. I think it would be great if they did the second film, but I'll respect their wishes. But the fact that there's a second book has me so excited, and I definitely have to purchase it because I'm loving this one so much. So I will have this book finished by the end of today. Then I will pick up this book, Roanoke, written by Emily Rodda. Again, as I said earlier, this is a middle grade fantasy book, and it is less than a quarter of a tome. In fact, I'm going to give you the total amount of pages, 138. A quarter of a tome is 250, so this is a pamphlet, technically. What we call a pamphlet, because it's so little. Let's compare this to the Black Prism, shall we? Massive difference. So, I'm going to be reading this book tomorrow, starting it tomorrow, finishing it tomorrow. I mean, with 120, whatever I just said, 123? No, 138. 138 pages, I don't see any reason why I shouldn't finish it in the same day. But yeah, that will give me a book to read tomorrow. Then after that, things are a bit out of order, I apologise. Then I'm going to move on finally to this book that I have been so looking forward to ever since I put it on my TBR, Captive Prince, book 1 of the Captive Prince trilogy by C.S. and insert surname here. Like, if you're watching this delayed, hopefully I've done my end of week wrap up vlog for this week and I can tell you how to pronounce this surname here. But I've had so much trouble saying it. It's either Picard or Passat, and I will find out for you. And I did promise at the end of my midweek vlog for last week that I will know for sure by my next midweek vlog. So here's to Sunday when I can talk to you about the book and also get the author's surname correct. Alright, so let's once again go back over everything we've discussed in a very quick concluding way. I started off this week wanting to read Brent Weeks' The Black Prism, and I was going to read it from Monday to Friday. I ended up DNFing this book after 4 chapters in for reasons I've already said. And it makes me very anxious to pick up another adult fantasy book. I will pick up adult fantasy provided it is my favourite author, Brandon Sanderson. But as far as any other author with adult fantasy, I'm very, very nervous about picking up an adult fantasy book because, yeah, I've DNF'd that many adult fantasy books recently, and that's just even really disappointing for me. I don't think it matters if adults read adult books or young adult books or middle grade or whatever, but I have to say that being that we're over halfway through the year, so far, predominantly my best books, if I put Mistborn aside, have been young adult books. So I think I'm probably going to more lean towards young adult, but I might have an adult book in next month's TBR. I don't know. I've already ordered them, so it's going to be a surprise for me like it is for you when those books are delivered to me, because I don't remember what's on that list, but there might be an adult book there, and if there is, I'll certainly be anxious. But anyway, this was DNF'd, and when I do my next when I do my DNF video to see which DNF book I should re-pick up, whenever I do that at some point in the future, this book will undoubtedly be on that list. So if you wanted to vote for this book, wait and hang out for that video whenever it does go up later on in the year or at the start of next year. Whenever I end up doing it, it will be there so you can vote for that one, and yeah, I'll try and give it more of a chance. As far as Mockingjay is concerned, I'll be done with this book tomorrow, thank God. Personally, I'm not a fan of this book, but as far as reading the book for the sake of the target audience that it's intended for, I think it is a good book, and I'm pretty sure I know what I'm going to rate it, but I'm going to hold off from letting you guys know that till the end of the week, because I want to fully finish the book and fully formulate my thoughts before I do rate it. I will not be doing a review of this book at all, because, yeah, I'm just not going to do a review of this book, so there's your heads up for that one. The Devil Wears Prada by Lauren Weisberger has been an absolutely incredibly enjoyable experience, and provided it doesn't let me down for the last section that I'm going to read today, it's going to get 5 stars, so really enjoying this one. Tomorrow I'll read Emily Rodda's Rowan of Rin, and then on the weekend I'll be reading Captive Prince by C.S. Picard or Passat, and on the weekend, on Sunday when I do my video, we will know how to pronounce this surname, and I am so sorry, C.S., that I keep getting your surname either wrong or saying one of the ways I'm saying it is wrong, so I do apologise about that. But anyway, these are the books that I've been discussing for my midweek vlog. If you have read any of those books and you'd like to discuss them with me, feel free to let me know in the comments below, but please do keep them spoiler free in case there are people out there who have not read these books and would like to read them. If you would like to discuss any of those books with me in a spoilery way, I always have my email listed in the description, so feel free to email me with all the spoilers that you wish until your heart's content, at least of the books that I've already read. Yeah, please don't spoil books for me that I haven't read yet, but yeah, would love to discuss any of these books with you guys if you would like to discuss them with me. But in the meantime, I'm going to leave that there for my midweek vlog for the 3rd week of July 2020. Let you guys go peace, blessings, and so much love. Mwah. I post videos every Thursday and Sunday with reviews and other videos in between, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye guys, happy reading, bye!